Okay, we're up to Nun Ches Amid Aleph, and we were discussing the interesting halacha that midoraisa, when a man goes ahead and gets married, and we know there are two stages of marriage, Erisin and Nesuin. After Erisin, if he's a kohen, she'd be able to eat truma. We saw yesterday there's machlokes why in fact they don't eat truma until Nesuin. Right? We had Ula Shita was what that maybe she'll bring a kais of truma into the house, and a brother or a sister will eat it. They will be chayv and misa b'dei shemayim, right? Shoygeg keren v'chaymesh. So therefore, to avoid any truma being in a non-kohen house, she doesn't get it till she goes and lives in his house. Or another reason was simpun. Simpun means is bittul, that he'll be mevatel the kedushim when he finds something wrong with her. A mum might be wrong with her. Lema freya, then anything she ate would have been what she would have been over in issa. So therefore, those are two reasons we gave why you don't go ahead and give it. We had a machlokes in the Mishnah. If you reach the time of 12 months and now's the time to live, we had a machlokes in the Mishnah exactly what she gets. Rav Tarfon said you get all truma. You can give all truma, even though when she's a nida or she's tamei some other tuma, she won't be able to eat it. Right? Nonetheless, that's her problem. Let her go ahead and sell it. We have Rabbi Akiva said, no, you give half for chulin and half for truma. And we're going to see in a brisa today, three other shittas, okay? We're going to say three other shittas of what the girl gets after 12 months, what she gets. So let's see. We're up to Nun Ches Amid Aleph, and we're 4 lines down. Rabbi Tarfon Omer, Noisen law called truma, Rabbi Akiva disagreed, that you give half truma and half chulin. Rabbi, machlokes between Rav Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva is the bas kohen lekohen. Rabbi Tarfon would say, if it's a bas kohen who is normally diligent in going ahead and dealing with truma, that's where Rabbi Tarfon says you give a truma, you give all truma, because there's no big difference from her daddy's house she's coming to her husband's house, right? So therefore, you can give all truma. Avo bas Yisrael lekohen, if she's a bas Yisrael who is not used to being niza in tumah v'tayra, because unless she's eating chulin al tyrus hakodesh, which most people did not do, right? She didn't treat her chulin like kachim or like truma. Therefore, she's not apt to go ahead and be able to be careful. And there, everyone would be maida divrei hakol. Even Reb Tarfon would be maida machzis chulin and machzis truma. So Abaye is going along and giving us an explanation of our Mishnah. When the machlokes in our Mishnah between Rav Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva is not speaking across the board, it's only speaking where it's a bas kohen lekohen, right, which would be common. But if it's a bas Yisrael lekohen, even Rav Tarfon would be maida, since she's not normally malumid, accustomed to going ahead and being diligent to mibetayra, you could be half of chulin and half of truma. Another statement of Abaye regarding this matter. Machlokes be'arusa. The machlokes is by an arusa. Machlokes is by a woman that you are engaged to, that you're not living with. A woman that you're not living with, you're just in a state of engagement. However, avol b'nesua, by nesua divrei hakol mechza chulin and mechza truma. But if once she gets married, she gets half and half. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, once she's married, what do you mean she gets half and half? Once she's married, she's living in his house. So I ask you to go ahead and turn quickly for 1 second to a Mishnah on Samich Dalid Amid Beis. Samich Dalid Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah, Hamashre es ishtoi al yidei shlish. Someone who is supporting, he's being mefarnes his wife al yidei shlish. Then, in other words, she's living. They're married, but they're not living together. They're married, but they're not living together. So now, go back to our Gemara, that's a state of Nesuin, but she's not living in his house. If she's living in his house, there's nothing to talk about. There's no machlokes. She's going to eat whatever he has. We're speaking about a woman who is a bas Yisrael, and she's now a Nesua, and she is not living with him. He is sending her a food through Al Yidei Shlish, through a third party. In that case, even a Tarfon would be maida that you get what? Mechza chulin umechza truma. Mechza chulin mechza truma. Back in the Gemara. One more time. Tani nami hachi, Reb Tarfon oimer, Noistin lo hakol truma. Okay, we're gonna have three shittas, two shittas in three different opinions. Everyone, she gets the whole thing truma. Again, Abaye qualified that speaking bas koyin l'koyin. Rabbi Akiva oimer mechza chulin u'mechza truma. B'medim amamurim bas koyin l'koyin. Aval bas Yisrael l'koyin divri hakol mechza chulin u'mechza truma. Okay, b'medim amamurim ba'arusa. Aval b'nesua divri hakol mechza chulin u'mechza truma. So, and where you say that she get Rabbi Tarfum Maida that if she's in a suah that she would get what mechza chulin umechla truma.
Why do you have to do half and half?
What?
Why both?
Again, she's not accustomed. Again, she's not living with him to get constant support. She's
Right.
tummy. So once she's tummy,
Okay.
she could be tummy. The same svara. It's the same svara. When she's living underneath him, I guess the svara being that he'll be careful and diligent with her with the truma because he's accustomed.
Okay.
But now she's not really living with the Maria, right? She's in a third house. Now, the truth is, why can't she sell it? So if you look at Rashi, Rashi says something very interesting to answer Arya's question. Mechza chulin, says Rashi, lefisha kol kfuda bas melech pnima. It's an Indian of tznius for a woman not to leave the house. In other words, if she's living at home in Beis Avia, so she gets mezainis, the father or her brothers will go ahead and sell. They'll go ahead and they'll sell the truma, and then be able to buy chulin. Over here, the reason why we give her chulin and not truma, it's not like I told you, Aryeh. It's that this is the reason. The reason we give her half and half. Because if we give her all truma, she's not expected to reach the laws of tznius by going out and selling. So therefore, we give her the chulin that she's going to have when she is tummy. Okay, that would work out. Again, as in the sewer, she's able to eat. She's able to eat the truma. The reason why we're giving her half a chulin, she should be troubled to breach the laws of tznius by going and selling. Okay, so so we saw two shittas: the shitta of Tarfin and all truma bas koyin l'koyin, and only when she's a arusa, not when she's in a suah. We saw Rabbi Akiva shita; she always gets half and half, and a few more shitas. Rabbi Yehuda and Meseira oimer noisen l'shtei yadai shel truma v'acha shel chulin. The ratio is not 50% and 50%. It's 66 and a third and 33 and a third. So she gets 2 yadais of truma and only a third of chulin. So you do provide for her something, however, not the same ratio as Rabbi Akiva. So he's disagreeing with Rabbi Tarfin, and he's just disagreeing with Rabbi Akiva regarding the amount. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer, not Rabbi Yehuda Mesei, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai Oimer, Noisin la hakol truma. She gets the whole truma. So the Gemara is going to ask, what's the difference between him and Rabbi Tarfin? V'himay cheres, she sells it. V'lekeches b'damim chulin. And she's going to go ahead and buy with the worth. She's going to buy damim chulin. So you have to see exactly what Rabbi Yehuda is saying. Okay. Says, let's see Rashi, guys. Rabbi Yehuda Noisin called truma. Now, being Rabbi Yehuda Reb Tarfin, what's the difference between the shita of Reb Tarfin and the shita of Rabbi Yehuda? In fact, they're both saying you always get truma, right? If you always get truma, so what's the difference? Says Rashi, Dilu Reb Tarfin Sava, Noisin la truma kidei mizan aseha. V'afal pishim tzricha lechulin ubo limcha truma ein demei truma magian likach behem chulin sheyikarim heim min truma shehe akol kaifsim aleihem. Fellas, if you would sell a pound of truma and a pound of chulin, you get much more for the pound of chulin. A pound of truma is limited; it's a large supply and limited demand because of the kahanim. But mashenkein chulin, people go to buy chulin because you need it. So according to Rav Tarfon, we don't take into account the difference in price. That l'chayra, if you're giving her all truma, she's going to get less food now when she sells it. I don't care. She's not going to get the biggest bang for her buck, right? Because again, it's cheap. It's cheap truma. So she's not going to be able to get so much. So therefore, however, Ula Rabbi Yehuda, noisem le truma kishir. She'imboyes likach mechza chulin le'tivchas min demei mechza chulin. Avol tareich mechira mutal limchat laseis tachas chulin. In other words, you would give her enough chulin that if she would sell enough truma, that if she would sell, it would replace the pound of chulin. In other words, you give her an amount that will go ahead and fulfill that ratio, albeit she has the tircha of selling it. So that's the difference between Reb Tarfon and Reb Yehuda. Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer, kol makom shehuskru truma. Anytime you mention truma, noisin la keflayim bechulin. You give double bechulin. You give double bechulin. You give double the amount. Now, my binayu. What's the difference between Reb Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? In both cases, you're saying you're giving truma, but you're going to sell it for the what chulin. So it could be nayu tircha. The difference would be what is the difference between the two of them is what is the tircha. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is more megal, right? You could sell it cheaper, right? In other words, if you're getting like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, you're getting more. So if you have more, you're able to sell it quicker. In other words, if I have more truma than the other guy, I'll be able to sell it quicker. So I'll have less tircha to fulfill the share of chulin. Mashenkein, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you have more tircha. That's the difference between the two. So Nimsa, Bemis, we have only two shitas over here. You either get the whole thing, all in truma, or you get the chulin. If you get it all in truma, we have two shitas, right? We have the shita of Tarfin, and we have the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, of the shita of Tarfin and the shita of Rabbi Yehuda, right? And what was the difference between them? Is according to Rabbi Tarfin, you have the tircha, and not only tircha, you're gonna not be able to supplement because you're gonna get bigger loss because you're getting the same amount. You're getting a pound of truma for a pound of chulin. You're not gonna be able to make up the difference. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you're gonna make up the difference. What's the difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel also says you get truma is the ratio. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel is giving you double truma. Since he gives double truma, you'll have much less trouble selling it because you could charge a cheaper price. That's the difference between Rabbi Shimon Gamliel and Rabbi Yehuda. And then we had the shita of Rabbi Akiva, and which was what, half and half across the board. You get half and half. Okay. Now, well, that is why it's by a bas kohen. But on the su of bas Yisrael, then according to Rabbi Tarfon, half and half. According to Rabbi Akiva, half and half. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Seira, the ratio across the board 2/3 and 1/3. According to Rabbi Yehuda, Seira, we're not making a chilik between whether you married a kohen or you married a bas Yisrael. But no, but a bas kohen or bas Yisrael, there's no difference. And according to Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, there would be a difference for a bas Yisrael to a kohen. You would get half and half. Those are the various shitas. Now, the last bit in the Mishnah was you have to be 12 months, right? The Mishnah had said the last in the Yavam Eina Michael B'Truma. So let's say you married 6 months to a guy and he dies. Now you're falling in front of his brother. So he does not have to go ahead and feed you. He doesn't have to go ahead and feed you. Only if, now what's the reason? Says the Gemara, Hayavam Eina Michael B'Truma, my timer, Kinyan Kasbay Rachmana, the Kohen goes ahead and he feeds Kinyan Kasbay, Bahai Kinyan Da'achifu, and she is the acquirement of the brother. She's not his acquirement, she's the acquirement of the brother. She's not considered Kinyan Kasbay. So the loophole of the Gzeres HaKos of the Torah says the Yavam does not have to go ahead and take care of her. He doesn't have to give a mezainis because he's not Kinyan Kasbay. The Mishnah had said, she works 6 months and then he dies, and Shisha Chadashim in the Yavam. In other words, he dies after 6 months, he does Yibum. And even the Mishnah said it was 12 months less 1 day, right, before the Yavam, or 12 months in a day by the Yavam, less 1 day by the Baal, right? She doesn't need Truma. The Gemara says, if she's 12 months less a day, right, she doesn't eat. If they are Yavam, me boy, 12 months less a day by the Yavam, you need to tell me. Madaf, when she most of the life, most of the year, she spent by her husband. If you're a quart short, even 1 day short, she doesn't eat. So you have to tell me that she spent the whole year by the Yavam that she doesn't eat. Says, no, ain't echanami. Zu, zu. Tell me this, and you don't even have to tell me this. The style of the Mishnah that this one, and not only this, but even this. Now we said Zu Mishnah Rishayna. Why was the Mishnah Rishayna? That after 12 months you eat Truma. After 12 months you eat Truma. The Mishnah Achroina said that no. The Mishnah Achroina said that she doesn't eat truma until after Nesuin. So again, Midoraisa. Let's go over. We're gonna get into this. Midoraisa, she eats truma right away. Kinyan Kaspai, he was Makadisha, and she's his wife. The reason why what she doesn't eat Bishmas Erisin, Machloikas between Ula and Shmuel, Machloikas between Ula and the name escapes me. 1 second. Shmuel bar Rabbi Huda, and the Machloikas of Ula says, maybe she's going to go ahead and give to drink in her parents' house, and Shmuel bar Rabbi Huda said because of Simpon meaning bittel, because he's going to find a mum in her. Good. Those are the two shittas. Those are the two shittas. Now, the Chachamim made a gezerah for that. But after 12 months, right? After I'm saying share. After 12 months, after 12 months, then she would eat. He has to feed her. That was Mishnah Rishayna. The Mishnah Achroina was that no, even after 12 months, as long as she's an Arusa and there's no Nisuin, as long as Arusa is no Nisuin, then she doesn't eat. So that's the Mishnah Achroina. So my timer, what's the reason? Because the reason simpun. In other words, he's going to find something wrong, and he's going to be mevatel. So until they live together, she doesn't eat. Bishlema leula kamaisa, the first gezerah shema yivzim loikos the besavia. So in other words, the reason why even though midaraisa you could eat midrabanan made a gezerah, maybe you're going to go ahead and feed a drink of wine to your father or your kid or your relatives. Why did they see? There's another reason, right? Ubasraisa mishum simpon. Maybe now, you know what? They figured it out that even if that's not a concern, after the period of Erisin's over, before Nisuin, we don't know if he's going to go ahead and reject the marriage because he's going to find something wrong with her. So therefore, you have a Mishnah Achroina. For that reason, she still can't eat. She can't eat until he lives together with her and ascertains without a shadow of a doubt that there is no mum, and he's not simple being mevatel the kedushin. So therefore, I can understand why they switched. Initially, they held the reason was because of Shema Yashka B'Beis, and then they said, no, that's not enough of a reason, because since it's before Nisuin, they still can find a reason. So therefore, they came up. But the problem is, like Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda, if the first reason was because of simpum, then why did they allow it and then change their mind? What happened? It doesn't make any sense. Simpum was always there. So if they didn't allow it initially because of simpum, why did they now extend it? Right? Elul Rav Shmuel Rav Yehuda Kamaisa Mishum Simpum. The first gezerah al sarusa can't eat is because of simpum. Ubasraisa Mishum Simpum. My binayu. Like, what's the difference? What happened that they went ahead and made a gezerah? They can't eat truma until Nisuin. The difference was bedikas chutz. Masavar bedikas chutz shma bedika. In other words, what are you worried about? That he's not going to find her attractive? So you know what? You go ahead and you have a woman. Okay, check her out. She's nothing really terribly wrong with her. She's okay. And then you get back the report. So you go get back a report. Very good. What happens in the last one? Because the only possible way you could know totally when he's intimate with her, then he would know clearly. So therefore, in other words, the first bedika is not a good bedika like the second takana, because again, you don't know anything until you live with her. When you live with her, then you'll see if there's a mum. So therefore, they went ahead and they said she can't eat truma until Nisuin, mamish until after he lived with her. That's the difference between the first one and the second one. Okay, we saw earlier in the Masechta that a man has to feed his wife. The Kon in the Ksuba, he has to feed his wife. In lieu of that, he gets what? He gets the Maisi Yadeha. He gets, when she works, she gets Maisi Yadeha. Okay. We're going to see later on that Maisi Yadeha is the amount of money you would get for selling a weight of 5 sloyim of the wool, of Shesi wool. This Erev wool and Shesi wool. I'm not exactly expert in a warp or a weft. One is Shesi is this way, Orev is this way, and one is thinner than the other. The amount of money you get for making a Shesi wool that weighs 5 slayim, that's the amount that what she's mechuyev to give him. Anything more is Yaiser, is more. For the Meiser, he would give her, in addition, he'd give her a ma'ah. A ma'ah is a sixth of a dinar is a ma'ah. It's a very small silver coin. In lieu of that ma'ah, it's just like spending money. It's petty cash, right? He would get the Meiser. He would get any extra Meiser Yadeha. He'd get any extra Meiser Yadeha. So now, with that in mind, who owns the Meiser Yadeha? Is it the woman's or the husband's? So Hamagdish Meiser Yidei Ishtay. Someone's Magdish, the Magdish doesn't say it's Magdish her hands, it's Magdish the working, the actions of her hands. In other words, you're Magdish what your wife brings home. The money that your wife brings home, you Magdish it. Harizu Oisa, she works, Voicheles, and she eats. And therefore what? In other words, it's not Kodesh. A man cannot be Magdish. The Gemara is going to figure out why not. If you're telling me that made it tonight, that in place of Mizainis, Ma'aseh Yadeha belongs to him, why can't he be Magdish Ma'aseh Yadeha? In Svara, I'd say he could. Again, she gets Mizainis, she has the security of Mizainis, he provides Ma'aseh Yadeha. If it's his, why can he not be Magdish it? HaMeiser, again, the Meiser is, again, guys, these are all Mishnayos weiter, but I'm just giving you, a little inside info, right? The Meiser, meaning the extra that he gets as a result of giving the silver ma'ah, that Rabbi Omer Hegdish. That Rabbi said would be Hegdish, and Rabbi Yochanan Hasan lo Omer Chulin. Rabbi Yochanan Hasan says he can't be Magdish that either. So Rabbi is of the opinion he can't be Magdish the Ma'aseh Yadeha, but he could be Magdish the Meiser, the extra money that he could be Magdish. Let's see why. Rav Huna, Rav, says Rav Huna name Rav. A woman is able to say to a husband, Eini nizainis, don't go ahead and sustain me. I don't need your money. Meaning I don't need your food. Ve'eini ose, and don't take my Ma'aseh Yadeha. A woman is able, Rav says, a woman is able to tell her husband, the whole reason that you have to feed me is because of Ma'aseh Yadeha. Don't feed me and let me keep my Ma'aseh Yadeha. Don't feed me and let me keep my Ma'aseh Yadeha. Ksavar, ki tiknu rabbanan mizayni, ika, u'Ma'aseh Yadeha mishemeva. In other words, the ikka takana of the ksuba is to feed your wife. You might therefore go ahead and say, 1 second, I'm feeding you. Why am I feeding you? You're making money. That's going to cause ava. It's going to cause discord. So therefore, to avoid according discord, we go ahead and say, okay, you're feeding me. I'll give you the money. We won't have ava. We won't have any problems. But the ikka takana was what mezainis. V'chi amra eini nezainis v'ni oiseh harshus biyada. Since the ikka takana was to help her, she says, I don't need your help. The takana was to assure me the security, the insurance that I have something to eat. I don't need it. I don't want it. It's in my yad to do it. Meisive aliyashia kasha tiknu mezainis tachas Ma'aseh Yadeha. It's mashma, the Ma'aseh Yadeha is the ikar, and the mezainis is the tafel. And for the Gemara, emet tikinu Ma'aseh Yadeha tachas mezainis. Let's switch it around. They were talking that you get the Ma'aseh Yadeha because of the mezainis, not that you get the mezainis because of Ma'aseh Yadeha, vice versa. Leima Messiah le, I'll bring you a raya. Again, fellas, if a woman can say Eini nizoinis ve'eini oisa, it means that the Ma'aseh Yadeha belongs to her. In our Mishnah, what did Rabbi say? If a man is Magdish, the Ma'aseh Yadeha, it's not Kodesh. L'chayra, this is a very good raya that it belongs to her. Because it's not Kodesh. Leima Messiah le, I'll bring you a raya to your din Rav Huna in the name of Rav. Hamagdish Ma'aseh Yidei Ishtay, someone is Magdish. Ma'aseh Yidei Ishtay, the woman's workings of her hands. Hari Oiseh v'oicheles. She goes ahead and she works and she eats. My love bin Izainis is not speaking where he is sustaining her, and nonetheless, what? It's not Kodesh. You know why? Because she's able to say, Eini Izainis v'eni Oiseh. Says Merlai. V'sheini Izainis. Speaking where he's not feeding her. In other words, she really can't say Eini Izainis v'eni Oiseh. But this guy, unfortunately, is poor. He's so poor he can't afford to feed her. In that case, clearly, whatever she makes belongs to her. But Einachinami, if he was wealthy enough to support her, a woman, you don't have a raya that a woman can Eini Yosef Eini. In other words, the Mishnah is speaking where she's not being supported. So you have no raya. If she's not being supported, then clearly the Ma'aseh Yedeha belong to her. If you're telling me she's being supported, guys, listen. If you're telling me she's being supported, and nonetheless, when the man is magdish his property, the Ma'aseh Yedeha remain chulin, you have a raya that a woman can say, Eini Nizonis V'Eini Oseh. So that shows it's not his. Since a woman can say that, it's a raya. You know, it's built into the system. It's hers. The Chacham made a takana that what you have to go ahead and feed her, and therefore you get it. But it's hers, and she could tell you I don't want it. But if you're telling me our Mishnah is speaking where you couldn't afford to feed her, then no one would say that it belongs to her and to him, and therefore you're magdish it. Therefore, it's not kodesh. Fred the Gemara Kasha Ibishain and Zaynis the Mailam Meimas. What's the chiddush? Guys, if you're telling me he's not supporting her, you're telling me, so why in the world would you have to tell me that, guess what? He's magdish it, it's not kodesh. Of course it's not kodesh. It's not his. She's getting nothing. I feel him on the Amar. Yachal Rav Loimela Evet. A Rav could tell the Evet, listen to this. Work for me and I'm not going to give you anything. Work for me and I'm not going to feed you. Mitzrayim. Hani mili be'emet kanani. That's by an evet kanani. The like sivbe imach. It doesn't say kitayv lev imach. It says by the nirtza. The evet ivri works 6 years and decides he wants to be in bondage until the yovel. He says kitayv lev imach because it's good. Imach. It doesn't say imach with you. Aval evet ivri the sivbe imach. By an evet ivri where it says imach with you, meaning he's like you. Loi. You can't go ahead and say what? Work and I won't feed you. The kolshkein ishto, you can't say work and I won't feed you. So the Gemara just built up the kasha. If our Mishnah is speaking, where you're not supporting her, why in the world you have to tell me if you're magdish on Ma'aseh Yedeha, it's not kodesh? Of course it's not kodesh. It doesn't belong to you. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you the chiddush. Sefer tzrichalei. You need the chiddush of the sefer. That meiser, the extra that you get for that more kesef that you give. Remeya oime hegdish. That is the chiddush. That on that Remeya says it's hegdish, even though the regular 5 sloyim is not, but this is. Okay, so that's the din. L'chayra, Remeya says you could say any you could say any isa any nizonis v'eni isa. She could tell you don't support me. In other guys, Remeya holds that way. You just can't bring me a raya from our Mishnah because our Mishnah is speaking where what where you're not supporting. But in Achinami, if you were supporting, it still would be that way. It still would be a like Remeya. Now, Upliga the Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says a woman cannot tell her husband, I'm not working for you. Don't feed me, I'm not working for you. A woman cannot tell, in other words, Rav's din that he said, that Remeya says, a person can say, don't feed me, I won't work for you. Reish Lakish disagrees with that. Reish Lakish disagrees with Rav. Don't Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says the following: Loi Taima, do not say Taima the Reb Meir. The reason Reb Meir holds that the Meiser is Kodesh. Again, you might it's chal on that Meiser, on that extra that she makes. It is chal. Don't say the reason is Mishum the Kesuvos Adam Magdish Davish Labalayla. There's a big shaila throughout Shas. Can you be Magdish something that's not in the world? Or does it have to be in the world? So this Meiser L'chayra is not in the world yet. So if Reb Meir says it's Kodesh, it must be because he holds that Odam Magdish Davish Labalaylam. You don't say that. El time of the Reb Meir that it's Kodesh is Mitoich Sheyachal L'Koyfa L'Ma'aseh Yedeha, since he is able to force her to give him the Ma'aseh Yedeha, Nase Kaimela Yagdishu Yadayich Loiseihem. Your hands are kodesh for their workings. Okay, outside, guys, outside. We want to extrapolate from Rabbi Reish Lakish one din. He says one line. Since he can go ahead and force her to work, meaning she can't tell him, don't feed me, I'll keep my work. He could force her to work and keep the money. That's all we need. That clearly that Reish Lakish disagrees with Rav in principle. Can you tell a woman, I won't feed you, and I'll keep? She can't tell him, Don't feed me, and I'll keep my money. Says Rabbi, you could. Says Rish Lakish, you can't. Having said that, he says we get into why is the Maisa Kodesh, not because you're Magdish Dava Shalal Ba'olam, you're Magdish Dava Shebala Olam. Her hands are in the world. Her hands are in the world. I'll give you a good example. The Gemara in the beginning of Hamafkid in the third parak. Can you be Magdish a tree lePeirosav? The Peiros are in the world. And the answer is the tree is in the world. So since Magdish Dava Shalal means nothing's in the world, but here the tree is in the world, so the Peiros. So what are you doing? Her hands. It's like he says, your hands, not the actions of your hands. Your hands are Kodesh. That's why the Maisa is Kodesh, because your hands are Kodesh. Says the Gemara.
You can be marking somebody's hands.
Yeah. So you can magdish the hands, right? Doesn't mean the hands are Kodesh. The hands, the work. It means the hands that do work. The work. It doesn't mean the produce. It doesn't mean the thing that you produce. The things that you will produce. So will produce is what? Is labala olam. But your hands to produce are in the world. The tree is in the world, Aryeh, right? The tree is not Kodesh. The peiros from the trees are Kodesh. The hands are not Kodesh. The actions are Kodesh. But since the vehicle of bringing that thing into the world, it's bala olam versus something that's not in the world at all. You hear the difference?
In sense, it's Baba Al can be Makdish also.
Since the hands are in the world, you can be Magdish them for what will be. Since the tree is in the world, you can be Magdish what it's going to be. If it's nothing in the world, you can be Magdish it. So that's why the Meiser, the extra is in the world. We look at it, guys, we look at it as if he was Magdish hands. Now, if you look at the Lashon of the Mishnah, it doesn't say that. It says a Magdish Meiser Yedei Ishtoi. It doesn't say the hands. It says Meiser Yedei. The actions. It doesn't say the hands itself. So Gemara asks right away. He didn't say that. He didn't say that. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you what he did say. Keeping the Shamina Leila Remeya. Since we heard Remeya said, the Omar, Ein Adam Maitzi Dvar of Levatala, a person doesn't say something for nothing. Nase Ka'amaloi Yakdishu Yadayich Lo Yisehem. Okay, guys. We know there's a parsha of Erchin. We know there's a parsha of Domin. What's the difference? If it's a parsha of Erchin, no matter how strong the person is, or how weak the person is, it's regardless, whatever their ages are, that'll determine the amount of money you have to give to Hegdish. So between certain years, there's no erech less than 30 days. There's no erech less than 30 days. So let's say a person would say on a 6-month-old child, erech yolai. So you'd say it's nothing, because after all, he has no erechin. Reb Meir is of the opinion, ein adam maitzi david v'alatala. A person doesn't say something for nothing. So he said erechin, but you know what he meant? He meant the may. He meant the worth of that. Everyone has worth. Everyone has the may value. Go to the slave market. See what the value of this child is. Everyone has a value in the slave market. Erech, the lashon to set amount that you don't have. So we see from that Mishnah in Erchin that Reb Meir holds that a person is not mitzvah devar l'Torah. So what did he say over here? He said he's magdish his wife's hands. Now the workings of his wife's hands. 1 second, he didn't mean the workings of his wife's hands because it doesn't work. Because it's davar shlo b'loilam. Ella, what did he mean? He meant the hands that would produce something. That's what he meant. So the lashon is not correct. But since in other mitzvah devar Torah, just like over there, the lashon wasn't correct. The erech of a person less than 30 days, right? The less than 30 days, such an erech. So too over here, the lashon of the Maisa Yadav, which is not in the world, it doesn't work. So therefore, it's as if he said that he's magdish for that purpose. Let's see it inside one more time. He didn't say he's magdish for hands. Says the Gemara, keep the Shamina Leila Remeya. Since we heard, according to Remeya, the Omar, Ein Adam Maitzi Devarav Levatala. A person is not mitzi his words levatala, meaning he doesn't say something for nothing. Naseh will view it like he said to her. Yakdishu yadayich loisehem. Your hands are kodesh for what they do. Fred the Gemara, the Savra Meya ain't other magdish davar shlo b'loilam. You're telling me that what? That you can't be magdish davar shlo. That's what you're telling me, right? Rabbi Shlakish is saying Don't tell me the reason for Rameya is that the Meiser is Kodesh is because ain't no Magdish Toilam. That's not the reason. But 1 second, I have another source that you could be Magdish Davish Labalaylam. But Tanya, very famous, we had this in Yavamis. A woman says, a man says to a woman, Hariyat Mekudeshes Li, La'acha She is Gayer. He's a guy. He says, this should be Kedushin after I'm a Gayer, or he's a Jew and she's a Gentile, or La'acha She is Gairi. This should be Kedushin after you're a Gayer. La'acha She Stacharer, he's an Eved after I'm free. La'acha She Tachariri, she's an Eved Shivcha after she's free. La'acha Shiyam is Bailech, she's an Eshes Ish. This should be Kedushin after your husband dies. Aisha Thomas Achasayach, or he's married to a sister and gives Kedushin to the sister, saying this should be a Kedushin after your sister dies. Or La'acha Shiachas Lech, Yivintech, or after Yavama, she's a Yavama L'shuk, and after Yavama. Rabbi Meir Omer Mikudeshes. Rabbi Meir says Mikudeshes. It's not a Davish Level Oilam. Right now, all these cases is not Oilam. You're not a ger, she's not a ger, you're not a free, you're not free, all of them. And Yermeya says Mekudeshes, fed the Gemara. So why did Reish Lakish say the reason why you can't be Magdish and Meiser is because it's not in the world? L'chayri, you should have no problem being Magdish. No problem whatsoever. Why were you forced to say that you Magdish the hands? Says the Gemara, Mehahi in. From that price that clearly you could say, Meha leka lamash mamina. From our Mishnah, there's an other way to go ahead and explain our Mishnah. In other words, if I only had one way to explain a din, I would agree. The only way to explain the shita that Rabbi would hold Mekudeshes is that you're Magdish Davish Labalaylam. That's the only way. There's no other explanation of that brisa. No, there's no other. That's the only explanation in town. There is no other explanation. After I'm free, after your husband dies, blank, 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 blank. The only way to explain that is a person can be Magdish, give Kedushin, Davish Labalaylam. Good. Our Mishnah, there's one or two ways to explain our Mishnah. Rabbi says that Meiser, again, that extra money is Kodesh. I could say, even though it's not in the world yet, it's Kodesh, because the person can be Magdish Davish Labalaylam. Or I can say, since a person is not Meiser Devar Vatala, it must mean he means that he's being Magdish the hands. Since there's two possibilities to explain it, you're not limited to saying the only way to explain it is Davish Labalaylam. So Eirachinami, Rabbi does hold the person being Magdish Davish Labalaylam. You just can't be medayik it from our Mishnah because there's another way to explain our Mishnah stating that our hands are Kodesh. And on that note, I wish you all a great job.
Shabbos, thank you.
Nice to see you.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.